Time to check out the Gigabyte suite at CES 2019. There was quite a bit going on here, including the new Gigabyte Aero 15 v9, featuring Nvidia RTX 2080 Max-Q graphics and Intel i9 CPU. So let's take a look at what Gigabyte had on show. As you may know, I've got the Gigabyte Aero 15X V8. I travelled with it from Australia to the US and used it to edit my CES videos. So I was very interested to see what the new V9 model would give us. The new Gigabyte Aero 15 is available in two models, the X9 with RTX 2070 Max-Q graphics, or the Y9 with RTX 2080 Max-Q graphics. Everything else is otherwise the same between them. Both models are available with the 8th gen i7 CPU as before, but now also have the overclockable i9 8950HK as an option. We've got similar screen options too, 1080p 144Hz for the gamers, or 4K 60Hz with better color accuracy for the content creators. This time around, there's more standardization between panels though. With the V8 model, it was possible to get either an LG or AUO 1080p 144Hz panel, which meant there were some differences based on what you happen to buy. With the new V9, Gigabyte will only be using an LG panel, so you don't have to worry about getting something different when purchasing. Gigabyte have what they're calling their all Intel Inside solution, where they make use of an Intel CPU, Intel SSD, and Intel-based killer Wi-Fi, with the idea being that these components provide a great combination of performance. This means we've got an Intel 760p SSD, which should perform better than the Toshiba SSD my V8 came with, and an Intel Wi-Fi card capable of speeds up to 1.73 gigabit, so double the speed of the 8260 wireless card that came in my V8 under ideal conditions. So some nice little improvements. Otherwise, the Aero 15 is mostly the same. The rest of the differences are at the software level. For example, another small quality of life improvement was that Gigabyte are now using precision drivers out of the box for the touchpad. With the V8, they were using ELAN drivers, and while you can manually install precision drivers, which is what I've done, it's great that this is now the default. Gigabyte have also teamed up with Microsoft Azure AI, and have software that automatically adjusts things like fan speed, clock speed, and power limits of the CPU and GPU based on the work you're doing at the time. The idea is that you don't need to go in and manually change settings for best performance. The laptop just sets the best settings for the workload that you're running, so it will be very interesting to test how this works in the future when it's released. I think the theory is that by having configuration dynamically managed, you should not only see better performance, but better thermals as well, as it's not often you need to be maxing out both the processor and graphics. So these dynamic tweaks may be how they're able to get the i9 and 2080 Max-Q going in there. I did ask whether this software could be used with the older V8, like the one I've got, given it's just a software solution, but unfortunately it will only be available with the new V9. I asked why and was told that the profiles they're making have only been created for the RTX GPUs. So while technically possible to come to the V8 in future, at this time they're only planning on bringing it to the newer V9 models. Many of you wanted me to find out if the keyboard had been updated. First, I wanted to note that while I do have to push down a bit harder than I'd like with my V8 Aero to prevent mistyping, it's been fine otherwise. However, this wasn't a problem I had with the 4K version that I recently covered on the channel, so it seems like it varies. Anyway, Gigabyte told me that for the V9 they will continue using the same hardware but keep improving the firmware. They're also looking at new hardware and a new design which they hope to be able to share soon. My guess is something around the Intel 9th gen CPUs, but we'll have to wait and see. So there wasn't too much of an update to the Aero, which I think is fine, given it was already a great well-rounded laptop. We're looking at the CPU and GPU spec bumps, better SSD and Wi-Fi, precision drivers, and the new AI software. So some nice incremental changes. Personally, I would have loved to have seen improved cooling, especially with the new optional i9 CPU, but I suppose there's only so much you can fit inside, and that will be interesting to test later. I didn't get much pricing information on the new Aero 15 V9, just a rough estimate on what we can expect with the specs maxed out. So Intel i9 8950HK CPU, Nvidia RTX 2080 Max-Q graphics, 2TB SSD, 4K screen, and I believe 32GB of memory, which would come in at around the $4,000 mark. Other than these updates to the Aero, Gigabyte also had the new Aorus 15 laptop on display. I've done a dedicated video on this new machine, so check the card in the top right corner if you're after any additional information on it. But basically, we're looking at an i7 8750H with either RTX 2060 or 2070 Max-Q graphics. Gigabyte told me that they may have new Aorus X5 and X7 models available closer to the middle of 2019, around Computex time. So it seems like the Aorus 15 is more of an entry model into the Aorus lineup for now. Aside from those two laptops, Gigabyte were also showing off some new PC hardware, including their new 2060 graphics cards, which I believe will be available from the 15th of January. These included the Mini ITX OC, Windforce OC, and Gaming OC editions. They also had the relatively still new Z390 Aorus Extreme Waterforce motherboard on display, which features a full water block covering the CPU, VRM, and chipset. There was also a new CPU cooler, memory, and PCIe SSD, all of which have RGB for maximum performance, as well as a bunch of custom water-cooled systems on display by Envious mods that looked great. Gigabyte are also introducing a gaming monitor under the Aorus brand, the AD27QD, and it actually uses the same panel as the Razer Raptor that I covered in a previous video, except the Aorus one is around $100 cheaper at $599 US, and in my personal opinion looks nicer. It's a 27-inch 1440p 10-bit IPS panel with 1 millisecond MPRT, or around 4 milliseconds grey to grey, 95% DCI-P3 coverage, 400 nit brightness, HDR400, AMD FreeSync, and a solid metal base with a fair bit of RGB lighting. It's got pivot, tilt, swivel, and height adjustments, with no external power brick as it's built into the monitor. One of the interesting features of the monitor is that you can connect it to your computer with USB, and then with the software installed, you can make use of all sorts of overlays on the screen that come from the monitor firmware, rather than anything in Windows. For example, you can put a crosshair on the screen or display system resource information, and this only shows on the screen. It's not detectable by the computer. If you take a screenshot, it won't show up. Gigabyte were also showing off a liquid-cooled server. Now, while most of you might not care about servers, I think it looked pretty cool. They said that this design doesn't require heatsink space, so components can be packed in closer, and it uses less power compared to running air cooling with air conditioning in the server room. So you get both space and power savings, which are critical in the data center environment. There were quite a few things to look at from Gigabyte. Just the new Aorus 15 laptop in terms of new laptops, which should be available sometime in February, while the updated Aero 15 V9 with RTX graphics should be available from the 29th of January. Hopefully I can get one to review and compare against the V8. I'm pretty interested to see how well the new AI feature does, and of course test thermals with the more powerful hardware. Let me know what you thought the coolest thing from the Gigabyte suite was here at CES 2019 down in the comments. And if you're new here, get subscribed for more of my CES coverage.